My training and the other services I provide are intended to achieve the best possible outcomes for organisations after incidents that might have been traumatic or maybe even tragic. And what we mean by that is we're helping people to minimise psychological distress, also to reduce any reputational damage that could be a consequence of the incident, and to bring control to longer-term costs. Now, it'll often be the case that an organisation will have some kind of specialist suppliers that it'll bring in the event of a serious incident. But in spite of that, it's still vital that people from within the organisation have a good idea of the sorts of things that they should say or do, and just as importantly, the things that they shouldn't say or do when they're talking to people who are affected, who could be, of course, colleagues, customers, or maybe family members. The role that staff members take on is often called defusing. Now, diffusers are the people from within an organisation who are going to engage with those who are affected by an incident. Maybe those people are customers, they could be colleagues, they could be family members. And in doing so, their role has 4 vital elements to it. I call them the principles of defusing. And they are that they are showing care and concern on behalf of themselves and, of course, their organisation. Secondly, they're showing that whatever has happened is being taken seriously. Thirdly, they're showing that they want to be a source of help, support and information in so much as they reasonably can. And finally, part of their role is to let people know what other support is going to be made available to them. It's very important that any organisation's response to a traumatic incident is prompt, proactive and personal. I should explain. Prompt means obviously getting on with it, doing something quickly. It's important that the people who have suffered a potential psychological trauma hear quickly that there is concern, that what's happened to them has been recognised, that something is being done about it. If that's not the case, if it seems as if the reaction is slow, unprepared, even unwilling, then that will generate anger and resentment, which in the long term will do a lot of damage. Secondly, proactive. It's important that people don't feel as if they've got to go out and get the support. So although it's tempting sometimes to, for instance, offer people a telephone number and to tell them, if you ring this number, you'll get access to people who know what they're talking about, that's never going to be as effective as saying, let's arrange for somebody to ring you. Let's be proactive. Let's go to you. We're going to visit where you are and speak to you. Finally, personal. And what that means is trying to ensure that nobody feels they've been left out. Now, it might be that not everybody particularly needs to speak to the people who are expressing concern on behalf of that organisation, but it's important that everybody is left with the perception that they had an opportunity to do so, should they have wanted to take it. By looking after people properly following some kind of traumatic or possibly even tragic incident, it creates goodwill. It promotes goodwill between the people affected and the organisation, whether they be customers, colleagues, family members, whoever they are. In good cases, when things are done well, as a result, you end up with product champions, people who are actually motivated to go out and say, when this thing happened to us, we were well looked after. That organisation did a good job. They seem to be well prepared. Their people seem to have received good training in this. If you don't look after people properly, that goodwill will drain away, and it'll drain away quite quickly. You don't have very long. It's a kind of a honeymoon period in which to show that you are proactively going to do the right things. But if you don't, what you end up with is anger and bitterness and resentment. Now, if that shows itself in the form of staff being angry and unhappy, you may well have a sickness, people leaving, difficult HR procedures going on. If that's customers, you might end up with litigation, group action, bad social media. Experience shows that if people aren't well looked after traumatic events, it goes on to be a very, very costly experience, not just in financial terms, but in terms of reputation as well. If people are well looked after, yes, of course, in the short term, it's going to cost something. It's vital, actually, that those services are provided, but it will quickly bring control to longer term costs, and as a result, often enhance the reputation of the organisation affected.